Well, gCADPlus gives you a number of different ways to enter coordinate information. Suppose we were using the line command and the prompt says first point. I could type 0, 0 and hit enter, and when asked for the next point, if polar is on, I could just move in the direction that I want to go, and you can see that the cursor locks to a horizontal line, and if I need to draw a line 6 meters long, I just hit 6,000 and then finish, and then right click and exit. So that line has been drawn from coordinate 0, 0 to 6,000, 0, and if we select the line, it tells us just that information in the properties box. So we're drawing in this environment. I have a grid on, and the grid, if we count these major grid point steps, that's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 drawing units. This is a metric environment, so that represents 6 meters, and the dimension has been applied. So we're using absolute coordinates. There's a coordinate system working in the background. But if I chose draw line and I snap to the end point of an existing line, the one we've just drawn in fact, so we're going to start at that point, and I right click at that point, I can say input coordinate, and I can use a number of different coordinate systems. To use that Cartesian absolute system that we just did, I would type X. I want to go in the X direction, I want to go 6,000. The Y, I'm not moving up. Remember that the system operating is X to the right and Y is up, so I just type OK. So yet another line goes in. I'll change my drawing color to yellow this time. So in that case we were using Cartesian coordinates. Let's draw a line again. We'll start at the same point. This time it will be a yellow line. Right click again, input coordinate, and instead of using absolute Cartesian coordinates, we can use relative Cartesian coordinates. So in this case, my base point is 0, 0, and I can type 6,000 and OK. So the yellow line goes in, and let's exit. So in that case, relative Cartesian coordinates and absolute Cartesian coordinates give you exactly the same result. The reason being we're starting from absolute coordinate 0, 0 in each instance. Let's do the line command again. This time we'll start at the end of the yellow line, and we want to move up 3,000 units. So I right click, input the coordinate. This time I'll take relative coordinates. I'm sure you can see that if I choose absolute Cartesian coordinates, I'll just move the box for a moment, exit from there. If I wanted to use absolute coordinates, I'd go to absolute coordinates 6,000, 3,000, and I'm sure you can do that. So let's pick draw line. What we want is to run through relative coordinate system. So we pick it up, right click, input coordinate, and we're using relative Cartesian coordinates. So in this case, we don't want to change our X value, but we do want 3,000 in the Y, and up goes the line. So we're drawing relative to, in fact, the last position of the line, relative to any point. Absolute coordinates will run everything related back to that 0, 0. So I have a point over here. If I wanted to draw it, and you'll notice its coordinate is 13,000 in the X and 3,000 in the Y. So if I wanted to draw a line from absolute coordinate 0, 0 to 13,000, 3,000, that should draw a line from our origin all the way up to that corner. And in that case, we're using absolute coordinates. So you can use absolute coordinates over the whole drawing, but nobody works that way because you can't keep a clear picture in your mind of the underlying system. Relative coordinates are much, much better. I'll add to this movie in a moment an example of the use of polar coordinates, which is another way to work. So gCADPlus has a number of different ways of using the coordinate system. We'll now look at the polar coordinate system. I'll first turn off the grid so that we can see things a little more clearly. Let's imagine, and I'll change our drawing colour to say magenta, so that we're laying down line upon line. So if we draw a line, and we'll start at that 0, 0 position, but without typing, and I'll just select that line there. We'll take polar off just for the moment because we're going to type in some polar coordinate values or enter them into a dialog box. So we're drawing the line. Next point is the prompt, right click and pick input coordinate. We want to move 6,000 in the X, and we want to go 0 in the Y, and we're going to use polar absolute coordinates. So our angle is 0. Over here on the left, I'm just reminding you of the angular system used by gCADPlus and AutoCAD and other CAD programs. 0 angle is to the right, 90 degrees is straight up, 180 and then 270. So we're using polar coordinates, absolute coordinates. The distinction between absolute and relative is exactly the same as we've covered. And we're going to go at 0 angle, we're heading off to the right, and our distance is 6,000. So we have entered that very same line and drawn it using using polar coordinate system. So now when I right click and input my coordinate value, I'm using absolute coordinates again, and because we started at 0, 0, I'd rather just swing to, I don't want to repeat myself, we'll go to relative polar coordinates, so it's relative to the end of that line there. Our angle will be 90 and our distance 3,000, and we'll enter, and the magenta line should go straight up. So and I'll exit from there. So gCADPlus gives us a mechanism for entering these values in with a very handy pop-up box, dialog box. You don't have to use that very same system. If I change my drawing colour to green now, hopefully you'll be able to see it. Let's imagine that we wanted to put a line from, so let's pick our line command, draw a line from the end of this line, and we wanted to go up. We could simply type it. We could say at, use the at sign, type the distance, 3,000, and then the angle, hold the shift key down to get the angle symbol, and we're going at 90 degrees. So there's our green line. If we want to go across in this direction, we use the at sign first, then the distance, 7,000, and then the angle. In this case, we're going angle 0. So I hope that you can see by this very long-winded movie that there are a lot of different ways that you can enter coordinate position. Entities such as lines, arcs, circles and so on can all be entered in this way using the various systems. So I hope you see the value of the right mouse click while you're in the middle of drawing one of these entities and then using a pop-up coordinate system box.